as automation people, we're always looking to automate something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the 80-20
Yeah.
rule. You cannot automate something that takes up 20% of the time. You have to
Mm-hmm.
focus on the 80. The point where you have to automate something in your business or your life is the point when you realize you're going to do something for the second time.
On this episode of Analysis Paralysis, I am talking to David Zisner. He was an electrical engineer that worked at Intel for 15 years, actually doing assembly line automation. He's now consulting and doing automations for small to medium-sized businesses, and we talk about how it's important to focus and specialize on specific software solutions, in his case, the CRM Pipedrive, versus being a jack of all trades. We even finish off the call discussing chatbots, AI, and some of the crazy things that Google is doing to push the industry forward, and some of the backlash that has come from Google Duplex that was announced at Google I/O 2018. So enjoy the episode. Hey, David. So how is it going, man? We connected through an automation group, Facebook automation group, and it seems like that there's a lot in common. From what I understand, we talked a little bit, and it sounds like that you kind of have Pipedrive CRM is the core to your services, and we're using Prosperworks as the core to our services. And I talked to Kelsey on the prior podcast, and he's using Infusionsoft. So it seems like there's some kind of correlation here, but I'd love to hear more about your background. Where did you kind of start off your journey? Were you always in automation? What got you interested in automation? And how did you kind of get to where you are now?
Well, actually, it's pretty cool. Thanks for having me on, Alex,
Yeah,
first.
absolutely.
Yeah, we connected through the Facebook Zapier experts group.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an electronics engineer. I'm from Israel, so if I
Oh,
fumble for words, it's
you're
because
totally
it's not
fine.
my native language.
Totally fine, man.
Yeah, and I actually come from electrical engineering. Worked for companies like Intel and startups. One of the startup that
Oh, wow.
I was a team leader in was acquired by Apple a few years ago. That's actually the first company that brought Apple to Israel, and now have they bought, I think, like 3 or 4 or 5 companies
Oh,
in the
that's
meantime.
wild.
Yeah, and actually, I've been into automation in one form or another since I think 2002,
Oh, jeez.
because I
Oh,
started in
man.
Intel when I was a student, when I was an electrical engineer student,
Okay.
and I started building, and my job was to build a software for that runs some sort of automation on the phones we were developing. We're
Mm,
developing cellular phones. Um, so we didn't call it automation, but it was automation. And it grew to from just me starting a project to me managing a team of, I think we were about 4 or 5. And, traveling to factories in Taiwan and later in
jeez.
South Korea as well, running around factories and make sure all tests run as well as they should, and developing the infrastructure. And after doing that for Intel, doing that for a startup that I was a part of, um, I actually went freelancing. It was around the time my daughter was born, my eldest. And I realized the startup life is cool, but it's keeping me from being with the people I love. So why don't I just freelance and, have more time at home?
Mm,
So that was around 2010, I think.
okay.
And I started freelancing around automation for high-tech companies, and I had a team of engineers that worked for me. We did projects for different companies like Broadcom, etc. And around the year 2014, I think it was, I kind of realized that we were doing really cool things and really complicated things with automating platforms and systems for high-tech companies and for product development. But my wife is a photographer,
Okay.
and her business was just starting to was on the rise. And I started noticing that she did a lot of the things that she did in her business around marketing, around sales, were really, really not automated. So she had
Mm.
like an email marketing platform, and she had an autoresponder, and she would send a drip campaigns, and that was cool. But outside of that, she was doing a lot of manual work, for a small business, for a one-man show or two-man show.
Mm-hmm.
Every minute you spend doing one thing, you're not doing another, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Um, so it really just started resonating that maybe I could help her in some of the actions she was doing. I remember it was her business and a colleague of mine's business, and they were looking to automate really simple stuff. I told Kelsey as well. We were really, the simple act of having someone register to, like on a landing page, come to my webinar where I'm going to sell something.
Mm.
We're not telling them that, but that's what we're going to do. And then you have to send them to register on a GoToWebinar registration page. So you have a double registration step. You want them registered on your email, on your landing page, so they'll be in the email marketing platform.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to then register to the webinar so they can receive their link and be registered and get notifications. And I started looking and asking, can I improve this? And I was looking for a solution that would allow me to. This is 2014.
Okay.
I was looking for a solution that would allow us to kind of connect things together and save these extra steps and maybe build just a tiny, smarter workflows. And I through a colleague, I just discovered Zapier as a cool integration platform. And I looked at it, and it had GoToWebinar on it, and it didn't have our email autoresponder platform because that was a local Israeli one. So obviously they didn't have a Zapier app.
Okay.
But I noticed that they did have a developer platform. And I started thinking, wait, if they have a developer platform and I can develop an app for our local Israeli autoresponder, which has an API, and I can do a zap. I didn't know it was called a zap. I just call it, do an automation from this to the other one, and maybe even get the link from GoToWebinar right into the email marketing platform and send it in a nice email in Hebrew and not those illegible emails from GoToWebinar.
Yeah.
Maybe something good would happen here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I started in the world of business automation.
Okay.
And we developed it. I developed the app, the Israeli autoresponder app, and just starting building workflows. These small steps with the webinars for my wife and for a colleague, and that was cool. That was nice. That was like 2-3 months of the first time you discover automation. It's so cool that I would just refresh the Zapier task history to see if anyone else is registered in the last 5 minutes.
And it's just this stream, it's just this stream that fills up in the history, and it's like a good feeling. And you could check out like who's doing it, check out all the steps, and it's an awesome feeling. I want to unpack a couple things here that you're kind of talking about. So when you're talking about automation, like in factory, like it sounds like that you actually started like true automation, and I almost feel like automation is a funny term because I feel like it's kind of changed meanings over time in recent times, whereas like in the past, it was really like factories, machines, robots, and that's still a massive part of it. So if you run around saying, hey, we do automation for companies, the average person is probably going to be very confused by that because they probably will think bot. Whereas when I think maybe you and me and the people in the group talk about automation, we really don't mean, machinery. We don't really mean bots in that regard. So did you actually start, when you're talking about the factories, were you actually doing automation there on the equipment, on the machinery?
Yep. The equipment, the machinery, having test equipment, do some measurements and analyze the measurement, tell you if this phone is okay or this phone should go off the line because it doesn't adhere to the GSM standards. Yeah, so we automated, but at the core of it, really you are just building some sort of workflow.
Okay.
And it's funny, I had a lecture on automation yesterday for students, people that are learning, PPC and SEO and all that. So they were just like, like a sort of intro to automation. And I told them what I tell everyone, like you said, people think of automation, they think of factory, they think of something technical. But I see automation first and foremost as a habit. So like let's say you have a habit of getting up 3 times a week and running or
Mm-hmm.
cycling. So it's a habit. You don't have that habit at the beginning. So if you don't have the habit, it looks strange to you to set the alarm clock to 5 a.m., get on the bike when it's really cold, and ride around for 2 hours, maybe sometimes in the rain, and go back and start your day. So even the thought of that sounds crazy. Like, I wouldn't do that. What am I, crazy? I'll just sleep over.
Mm-hmm.
But once you develop the habit, it's really hard to stop. I used to swim early in the mornings. Now I cycle. But getting up at 5 a.m. when it's raining outside and I'm swimming in an open pool didn't seem crazy at all,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Because I had the habit.
Mm-hmm.
So automation is exactly like that. So it's a business habit. So once you adopt the habit and you get used to looking at all the business processes, that's the marketing, the sales, the customer service, looking at them through the automation prism, it really changes the way your business is built. It changes the way your customers experience your business. I tell a lot of people all the time, we're in the business of engineering customer experiences,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we do. We build automation so someone will
Mm-hmm.
receive the right email, the right notification at the right time, be it the salesperson or the client. It doesn't matter, but
Mm-hmm.
something good has to happen at the right time, and you
So
can do that without automation.
So it sounds like a lot of what you're kind of involved in. Is it more from the sales and marketing side, or do you get pretty heavily involved in maybe the operational? So maybe something goes from someone's now a client of a company, and what does the project look like? What is the process of the project, and then bringing them from project start to completion to then after the project's completed, like, hey, let's do a case study, or can you leave us a review? How involved are you throughout the entire process, or is there a certain area that you focus more on?
I focus a lot. I think it's something that I realized a while back. There are a lot of great digital agencies, people that are very good at generating leads at a
Mm-hmm.
good cost,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that market really is filled with hugely talented people,
Totally. Yep.
some more and some less,
Mm-hmm.
but and they're very good at bringing you an X number of leads at a Y cost.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. But not a lot of people give thought to what happens 1 second after the lead is generated.
Mm.
So I like to think of ourselves as from the lead and up north.
Okay.
So be it the connection of how the lead experiences your sales pipeline, all right, or once you do, or how do you manage the follow-ups and everything inside the sales process, so it's a seamless experience for the customer, but it's also a very good experience for the salesperson who has to deal with tens and hundreds of leads that way.
Mm.
How do you automate a lot of the hard work to make the salesperson's life easier so they will close more deals?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
also I love the side of what happens after the client closes. How do we do the onboarding in the
Mm.
best fashion?
So what project management software? We talked a little bit about this in the past. What project management software do you find yourself using internally, and then also for clients? And I'm guessing maybe you use different software for different clients. It is tough sometimes to find one piece of project management software that works for every client, right?
Yeah, I actually tell you the truth. I'm still waiting to
Mm.
fall in love with project management software
Okay.
as I did with Pipedrive for sales, for example.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because I really, we corresponded about that. We had a few back and forth about that, you and I.
Hmm.
You with Asana, that you fell in love, like I fell for Pipedrive, you fell for Asana. But
I'm
I'm
trying. I'm constantly trying to fall in love with it, right? Like Asana,
really
yes, it is tough because there's so many things that you can do that it's a little overwhelming, and it's very easy. There's no guardrails, so it's easy to do things wrong and start hating the system. So I've constantly been trying to figure out best practices for the past 2 years, and I don't even feel like I fully have them, which is a scary thing for a piece of software. So then I'm like, should I put Asana in for clients? And it's pretty much like an absolutely no in most scenarios because it's too overwhelming for their needs. So what I use internally actually differs significantly from what I even recommend clients on, which is a weird thing
yeah.
for project management for sure.
Yeah. So A good project management software, yeah, that's a very good question. I can tell you that my rule for now for any piece of software in the business, it really has to either integrate real well with Zapier, have a real powerful integration, or it should have a real simple REST API that we can use webhooks to perform any action. That really is, I cannot pick a tool for either my business or my customer's business that doesn't adhere to either of these two. Because
most definitely.
Otherwise, what happens is you have like let's say some sort of business process, and you're manually doing actions, and it works well while you're small, or while there's not much going on. But you always have to ask yourself, and I always think about that when I work with clients. What happens if what we're doing succeeds, and what happens if it really succeeds? How will our everyday life, how will our clients' everyday life look when things go really well? Because suddenly you're dealing with a much larger volume, and that's something that I've recognized over our work, that a lot of businesses don't give much attention to. So they start with some sort of workflow. Let's do this, let's do that. And just today, I got a confirmation for a project that I'm really excited about with a client, and they had a process like that. So they have mostly Facebook campaigns, and from there they have a webinar that's pre-recorded, but at set times, and then they have to start segmenting the leads to those who register, those who attended for most of the time, or a shorter amount of a period. And it worked really well when they were small, but now they have like one webinar each week with about 1,500 to 2,200 registrants. And they are really losing heads and hand and feet.
Well, so that's kind of the interesting and difficult thing, I think, where I'm sure you being involved with your own company, like, when does it make sense to automate? And I think it makes more sense for us to automate things more often, because we already know so well the concept and the mindset of automation. But for a client, like, it is actually difficult, and it's, training involved to know when to automate. When should I be thinking like this thing's going to scale, and when it does, we need to do something? Because I think you and me are probably good at looking at something and saying, we can automate this, but this will probably save such a small amount of time relative that we don't even want to look to automate this until you guys maybe hit, 50 of X per month. Then we should start looking at automation.
First of all, it's really accurate what you're saying, because as automation people, we're always looking to automate something. And it's like the 80-20 rule. You have to automate. You cannot automate something that takes up 20% of the time. You have to focus on the 80. But I have like a rule of thumb that I always tell people, and I know they won't follow it precisely. But if they just remember it as a rule of thumb, already their lives will be better. I always tell people, listen, the point where you have to automate something in your business or your life is the point when you realize you're going to do something for the second time. So I had a really interesting, I admin a Facebook group called Pipedrive and Zapier users in Israel. I would invite everyone to join the group, but most of the discussions there are in Hebrew, so I don't think you'd make much of it, although you can work with Google Translate. But there was a really interesting discussion there. I told them that we automated a workflow for our client that involved automating the quote generation process. So they manage their leads in Pipedrive, obviously, because they're our customers, and they wanted a way to auto generate the quotes, because they were working on the quotes for a long time. So I figured out, listen, we're just gonna connect WebMerge with Pipedrive, and WebMerge, and they have a native integration, so it works really well, and it's they have a dynamic table of all the products. It's really, really good integration. And I thought about the group about that. Like, listen, if you're doing this process, just automate it with WebMerge. And one of the guys in the group tried to do something one way, tried to do it another. He wanted to build his workflow a bit differently. So he didn't get around to. It was about a month of him just playing around with it and knowing that he wants to do it, but never really doing it. And then he wrote a post, I think it was 2-3 weeks ago. He said, listen, I came to for about a month. I wanted to do this quote automation and didn't get around to it. Today I had to write 2 quotes for 2 customers, and I decided that instead of spending 30 minutes to write these quotes, I'm going to spend 4 to 5 hours building the automation. Now, on the surface, you can say that's a very poor very poor decision, right? Because just spend the 30 minutes. But he understood and he knew that if he spends the 30 minutes today, he'll spend them tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. But if he just takes the time, which is longer, to automate it, that's it. He doesn't have to deal with the repetitive process ever again. He just presses a button on his CRM and it's done. So really the rule of thumb is just start noticing when you're going to do something for the second time. And that should light up your spider sense that perhaps this thing needs to be automated.
It's interesting because I think one of the things for me that I found was proposals are one of the best areas to get a client to understand the value of automation, because it's one of those things that, if they're kind of a service business. I got involved a lot in the home improvement space initially, and they may be pushing out 400 plus proposals a year. So that's a very clear area of okay, well, a proposal, maybe a custom proposal is going to take me 2 hours. So if we can automate this and make this take 20 to 30 minutes, it's very clear the time savings there. So I think there's certain areas. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I really think proposals are a great area for people to get involved with either automation or at least modularizing. There are things that you can do to improve your efficiency for proposals. And then there's the point of yes, pushing from the CRM to the proposal software. And a lot of great proposal software out there, we use PandaDoc, for example, and they have a few integrations with Pipedrive, ProsperWorks, and a couple others. And you can just click a button from the opportunity and it will pull out all the tokens and it will fill out the proposal with that person's information and the opportunity name and things like that. So I think a big part of that, what have you seen? I mean, what is the easiest ways for someone to get involved with automation that maybe they don't want to involve someone like you or me right off the bat? They just want to get a taste of what it's like.
I would suggest first thing, just start looking at your everyday and start noticing the things that you're doing over and over again. Because going back to the beginning of our conversation, when you want to develop a habit, you can't just go from being a couch potato to being like an Ironman. You have to go through steps, and you have to go to steps that your mind and you can process, right? So it wouldn't be effective to automate something that you don't repeat over and over again. Because then you put in the work for automating it, for studying something new. And if you don't have the habit yet, you have to study something and you have to ask in forums. It can be a bit frustrating maybe at the beginning. But then if you don't notice it, the output of that every day, you just wouldn't develop the habit. So first of all, just look at the simple stuff that you're doing every day. Remember, we started from automating the double registration between our autoresponder and GoToWebinar. So just pick the minute little action that you're doing over and over again, and say this is a challenge, that this is something that I want to remove from my schedule, and then just, if you want to know how to get it done, just open a Zapier account, because it is the most accessible way to start automating, and just start playing around with things.
Absolutely. So maybe it's a mindset, right? It really is a mindset that you need to get into. An automation mindset is a way of thinking that, I think listening to podcasts like this is a good way to start thinking in automation, where a lot of my clients don't start thinking that way. But the more that we talk about things and we start automating, it clicks with them. And now they come to me and hey, can we automate this? And it's yeah, we can. And it's so cool to hear that from them,
I have a kind of funny story about that. I think it was a year and a half ago or something. I was talking with a client of mine. She has a business. She works with parents and kids on improving communication and meditations. Oh. And we were talking. We were actually improving their company's Pipedrive, their sales infrastructure. But then while talking to her, I was home that day, and I realized she also needed some good images of her business. That's what one of the things that my wife does. Business
Mm-hmm.
business photographs. So I told her, listen, I'm giving the phone to my wife. Just talk you two, and I know you'll hit it off. So they started talking, and I gave her the phone. I was in the other room, and my wife, of course, being a good salesperson over her business, put her details and everything into Pipedrive and everything, the conversation, and the talk ended. And I think it was about like 10 minutes later, I got a phone call from that client, and she told me, David, listen, I want what I got now. I want one like that as well. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, I just finished the call, and I got what you sent. I want it as well. And I really had no idea what she was talking about. I had to go back and forth. Then I realized that because my wife, being a good salesperson, marked in her Pipedrive account that that client was a referral from me. The client got a very custom SMS that says, "Hi, Inessa, because you came through David, you're eligible for a 10% discount using this coupon. Here's the link to purchase the session." But
that's awesome.
I did not remember setting the automation up.
So is that in your wife's account? So does your wife have a Pipedrive account, or do you share an account?
Anyone, I think everyone I know other than my dog has a Pipedrive account. Yeah, but my wife's, each business is a separate Pipedrive account. We have one. My wife has one, and obviously everyone that we build a sales infrastructure to has a Pipedrive account as well.
That's very cool. So did you use something like Twilio in order to send that out?
Actually, just a local, like I said, it's a local Israeli SMS platform as well that I helped usher into Zapier, because no one knew what Zapier was like 2 years ago.
So have you seen SMS like really be a helpful thing? I guess like it's an interesting thing where like email, obviously people have been using that for a very long time, and I think like a haircut appointment, I'll get an SMS message, but otherwise I really don't get SMS, which is kind of nice in a way because I don't really like I feel like my number is my safe zone. But have you seen like a good kind of return on investment by utilizing something like SMS for marketing?
Huge return on investment for SMS. We're using actually multi-channel, so we're using email, obviously. We're using SMS, and we're using chatbots. So we use the Facebook Messenger broadcasts. But if I'm looking 6 months back at the Black Friday, we got a huge return on SMS because we used really custom-made SMSs. So what we did was just pull the list from the CRM, like 3 segments, I think, of customers who did not make a purchase this year. Customers who have made a purchase last year, and customers who are right now in the sales process. And using Zapier, we really customized the message to each one, and send a very custom message saying, "Listen, you gotta make use of our Black Friday offer." And that worked so well that I said, I copied all the phone numbers and names into Google Sheets, and I turned my eyes to talk to someone. I look back and, oh my God, look at all these leads. I had no idea that they would flow in so fast.
That's awesome. No, definitely something to consider. Very cool. There's a bunch that I want to jump into. I heard you mention, bots and things like that. I do want to focus on one thing. So Pipedrive, I want to dive into this. We've kind of been talking briefly about it, but I love CRM. I absolutely love it. Like if you talk about, I guess the set of things that we use at a core level, G Suite and Prosperworks CRM are the two things that I just love. Whenever they update it or an API updates, I get so excited to just check it out. And it's just like, I'm curious how you got involved with Pipedrive. Why did you choose it to be that core to yours? Do you just take on clients that utilize Pipedrive, or do you actually take on other clients, or only if they're willing to switch over to Pipedrive? Like, what does that look like for you?
First of all, we got into Pipedrive for 2 reasons. Like I said at the beginning, we developed the Zapier app for the the leading
Mm-hmm.
Israeli autoresponder platform, and once I realized that it's helping us make money, I started selling subscription to this specific app. Um, so we would sell actually an app for automating marketing processes. But at some point I started realizing I need another application for the app I developed.
Mm.
So an application. So another way to tell people, listen, you have to use our app. And what connects better with the sales with the marketing process than the sales process?
Mm-hmm.
So we were looking for a good CRM that I can say, listen, using our Zapier app, this CRM connects well to this email marketing platform. You can build workflows that you have not been able to build before
Mm-hmm.
by our our app, our marketing app.
Okay.
So that's one reason. Second reason is really for my wife's business. We were just looking for a good CRM solution because we were using Excel before
Ah.
that, or in Slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And really looking around, I asked people. I heard of Pipedrive like a year before or so, but I didn't put much thought to it.
Okay.
But then I started asking around and looking around and investigating, watching their videos, and seeing that it was not only a fun CRM platform, it was really powerful in its simplicity. It was really powerful with its Zapier integration.
Mm.
So that's kind of I just kind of fell in love for Pipedrive, and I fell so hard in love that I just created like a 4-hour free online training course for
Oh,
Pipedrive.
interesting.
That that just started telling people, listen, you have to use this CRM. And obviously, one of the sections there was how to connect it with our automation app.
Mm.
And it really gained a lot of attention. People really loved it. They really loved our training. It's still online today, and that's the point where we started getting requests for CRM integration process
Mm.
projects.
It's
So
interesting because like I guess when I was first starting out, I realized I tried a few different CRMs out there. Streak CRM was actually one of the ones that I started on. I tried Base CRM and a few others. And at that point, I got very passionate about like, okay, well, if I'm going with Prosperworks, then I think this is the best one on the market. And the more that I've been in this community, and the more I've been talking to people, the more I've been like, I guess, open to like, there isn't necessarily one solution that works. Part of it is just having one in place versus, say, Excel, for example.
yeah,
And
exactly.
then finding maybe a partner that understands everything about that system, because I like this is what I feel pretty confident about, where if someone is using Pipedrive right now and they want to automate, it is such a no-brainer to get involved with you. No different than with us with Prosperworks, because I
Yeah,
know for certain that you know everything about Pipedrive. You know the limitations from the API, which also means you know workarounds. You know everything about Pipedrive. And there's value in that versus saying, I have some mentors of mine actually that they will put the best tool in for the job, but there's a difficulty with that where one day you have to be Salesforce expert, the next day you have to be Pipedrive expert, the next day you have to be Insightly expert, and it's like
yeah.
it doesn't. I don't feel like you can give the best return on investment, or I guess the best value to the client by doing that. Where maybe they'll get a better fit for their needs, which there's definitely significant value in that, but really going to an expert that knows the platform that you're specifically using, I think is one of the most valuable things that you can do.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Also, having seen some professionals who uh, built Pipedrive workflows and infrastructure for their clients without really knowing how to work correctly with Pipedrive.
Mm,
So a client like that came to us and said, "Listen, I'm really I'm kind of bummed out because I took someone else. We were too expensive at that time.
hmm
But I took someone else. I love the Pipedrive, but you were too expensive. I took someone else, and I cannot work with what they built. Could you take a look at it?" And I looked at what they built. I invited them to our office. I looked at what they built, and it was really not understanding the core concept behind Pipedrive.
mm,
So they would just, they have like a lead magnet, and the person who built their Pipedrive workflow just with Zapier, um, open the deal for every new person who downloaded the lead magnet. No,
Oh no. Okay.
that's in the thousands.
Mm.
Okay, and most of them do not leave their phone number,
Mm-hmm.
and you cannot do anything with them. You have to wait till their sales qualified to send them to a salesperson. But having thousands of non-qualified leads in your CRM really hides the 5 that are qualified.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the point when I told myself, I hope I have the integrity to admit when something is out of my is not out of my expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really have to do that, because you can do, like you say, you cannot be the number one Salesforce experts and the number one Zoho expert and the
Mm-hmm.
number one Pipedrive expert. You really need to focus, even if that seems scary, because you're afraid to lose clients. If you're
Mm-hmm.
focusing on X, you're not you cannot take customers in for Y.
Mm-hmm.
But so if X is large enough and you focus on being really the expert on X, then you can just bring much higher value to your customers, and more of the right customers will come.
Oh, and just the partnerships you can build with it. I mean, for example, I think it gets to this point where if anyone needs Infusionsoft, I know I need to send them over to Kelsey, and no different with you with Pipedrive. Like, in a weird way, we're not competitors at that point, which is really cool. We're doing kind of the same things, but I don't want to step over your toes because I know you could do a better job for someone that has Pipedrive. And like, that's such a cool thing. Whereas if we did everything, then you kind of just get competitive and it's like, no, go with us. What CRM you're using? Oh, it doesn't matter. We'll do it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of a cool thing that comes from it as well, like the community that can be built from it. And I think even so, if you find someone else that also does Pipedrive and does everything similar to you in the community, I still think that you'd relate with them and partner with them in some regard where, sometimes it is good to have someone else that you can push some work off onto and maybe make some referral from it, or just talk things through. Like, hey, I'm having a lot of problems with this specific use case. Have you ever experienced this in Pipedrive, and do you have a workaround? And there's a large enough market available at this point where you don't have to take on every single client at that point, and you can just partner up and learn, and I think that's what the community is meant for. So
I totally agree, because really, I made the mistake at the beginning of taking on all platforms, all projects, whatever you want, we'll do it. But that is so wrong.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, but I guess a CRM is a CRM is a CRM in a certain way, and there is some truth to it. But from something that I, like when talking to Kelsey, that I kind of learned what was interesting to me, it was like he mentioned Infusionsoft. They have opportunities, but they're not opportunities in the way that Prosperworks is opportunities, to the point where he's like, we pretty much never utilize opportunities for other, reasons. And then companies, like these things that are consistent, opportunities, companies, people, he was explaining to me that like they use them in different ways than we do, which is a very weird thing, because you figure CRM is a CRM, but it's not that way, because there's limitations in Infusionsoft for, say, opportunities. Therefore, they can't use it in a certain way, whereas Prosperworks works differently, so it can. So I'm curious, from your standpoint, what is the workflow, the typical workflow in Pipedrive, and does everyone like kind of start as a lead potentially, and then they could be converted into a person, an opportunity, in a company? Like, what is the breakdown? What do you guys typically use? Can you have multiple opportunity pipelines, one for maybe the project pipeline process and one for sales, or is it really just the sales process? Like, how does all that look and work for Pipedrive?
First of all, we try to have as little pipelines as possible.
Okay.
So not have too many pipelines, and work a lot with products. I'll get to why too in a minute. But it is very common for our customers to have a sales pipeline, and then like an onboarding pipeline, something goes the office pipeline. So and just automate that whenever a deal is won in the sales, open a new deal in the onboarding pipeline, which will have totally different actions, totally different owner, and will be more around getting the forms and verifying payments, etc. And that's first of all something that we love to do whenever it's relevant. Whenever there is an onboarding process. And yeah, work with the pipeline is usually it's pretty straightforward, the pipeline itself, because you have a new lead, you have like a contact made, and then you have all the follow-up steps, and so that's pretty standard. What we are doing with that is like the first step of the follow-up process. We automate sending the client's details to maybe an email marketing platform based on some sort of drip sequence based on which product the client is interested in. So
Okay.
if, let's say, I'm selling product X or Y, I will attach the right product to the deal. I can do that when the lead is created with automation, like from a landing page, or manually. We'll just instruct the salespeople. And inside the product itself, since it's a customizable, I would have a field that, for example, would contain the drip tag. So if you're working with drip, you're using tags to trigger workflows inside drip that send emails and etc. So I would just have a zap that says whenever the deal reaches the first follow-up stage, just send the lead, just pull the tag from the product and send the details to drip. Now, building a workflow like that once, all you need to do is whenever you add a new product, just remember to add the right drip tag for the right drip sequence, and then just instruct the sales team. Listen, whenever you're talking to a prospect and you don't close the deal on the first try, and you set like a follow-up to 2 days from now, just drag him over to this stage of the pipeline, and they will receive an automated email sequence. Now, they don't need to know how the email sequence is sent. They just need to know that they don't need to open their own email and start sending the prospect, listen, this is what we talked about, this is the price, etc. It just send automatically.
That's definitely great. That's really cool. So I guess I'm trying to understand a little bit, the more that we talk, somewhat of the business model that you have, for example. So say that you'll take on a client that's already using Pipedrive and they just want to do some of the things that you're talking about. So they want to have these automated emails going out for a follow-up campaign, depending on the product that they're selecting and everything like that. What does kind of the business model look like? Do you have an implementation fee, a discovery meeting with the client, and then do they pay you for ongoing automation, consulting? Like, what does that look like for you? Because I feel like a lot of the people I've talked to, they have slightly different business models, but there seems to be some type of recurring aspect to it, because to maintain automations, there is work involved with that.
Yeah. So first of all, just knowing what we're going to do is usually involves some sort of meeting. I have had clients where I sold the integration process over over the phone, riding my car somewhere. But usually I would love to meet with them if it's a big enough, if it sounds like a big enough opportunity.
Okay.
And then we would try, since it's a bit tricky, right? Because first of all, as you and I know, automation is pretty much endless, right? You can always add something, you can always improve something, up to it can become marginal at some point, but you can always do something. So you and I, we both know that if the client starts with automation, they will want more automation and more automation. But you can't really go into a sales meeting and tell them, listen, once we start working, you will be married to us. You will not be able to leave us because you need more and more automation. And I don't think it's the right attitude as well. So you really need to start with some sort of well-defined scope. So we're going to take this process, we're going to automate that. You will have these emails, you will have these text messages, and you will have lead sources X, Y, and Z pop into the CRM automatically, and you will have some sort of onboarding sequence, and that will cost you X amount. On top of that, if it's with new Pipedrive customers, since we are Pipedrive resellers, we will sell them the licenses as well, which is a good recurring revenue.
Does that go through you? Out of quick curiosity, the reseller program, do you bill the client for Pipedrive and Pipedrive bills you directly, or do you just get a margin and they're paying Pipedrive directly?
No. Pipedrive bills us.
Okay.
We bill the customer and Pipedrive bills.
Okay. Same way for Prosperworks. Gotcha.
Yeah, I love that arrangement because effectively it's our client.
Yes.
So so there's that recurring revenue, and also a lot of the times, when I just started out with the business automation, I really wanted everyone to be able to do the automations and create the zaps and do everything on their own. But it took me a couple of years to realize that people don't necessarily want to build their automation. They just want it to work.
Mm-hmm.
So often, if there's a large enough scope of potential for the customer, we would stay on like some sort of retainer for adding more stuff and adding automations. Or if it's just we're seeing it was a set scope, but the customer will need some fixes, etc., we would tell them, perhaps even at the original quote, you're also going to buy some sort of an hour bank for future improvements, etc.
Okay.
So that's kind of the business model for always try to sell the tools as well, and add value on top of the tools themselves. For us, for example, we can provide Hebrew support, or we have very good videos on training, and so that's added value that gives the people incentive to buy the licenses from us.
Interesting.
And on top of that, also work and always improving the infrastructure.
So one of the things that I've seen as well is Pipedrive and these other large companies, they're trying to build it to a point where someone could just come in who is using Excel and jump onto their platform and start using a CRM. Like, it is fairly easy to get up and running, but I think that's where one of the difficulties kind of comes to play, where it's like they're selling the value of how easy it is to get started on their software, but that doesn't mean that they're going to use best practices. That doesn't mean they're going to be configuring the custom fields that need to be created, or maybe you don't use a custom field here, you use native tags, or maybe like there's so many best practices to organize your data so that 2 years from now you have good data, you have organized and you have best practice data, versus them going on their own and just doing it. How do you get that across to customers sometimes? Because they'll just see, okay, so let's look at Pipedrive. Okay, like $25, $29 a month on the middle tier per user per month. And they might look at it in their mind like, okay, I have a 5-user team, so we're going to be spending about $150 a month on the CRM. Why would I ever pay a company, $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month to be helping me with this? And it starts not clicking in their mind because they're like, the software is only $150. Why do you want so much? How do you get that value across to customers? The value of having good data and best practices and making it so that data can be pushed to other systems and integrated?
Well, first of all, it's a great question. One of the things that I realized, you always try to look for the ideal customers. So who's the best customer for me at this point or for this product? And what I've learned is many times the customers that have tried some sort of CRM solution, didn't work, put in the money, and it didn't work for them, those are actually some of the best customers, because they know they need a solution.
Okay.
Otherwise, they would not be talking to me or to you. But they know how it looks when it's not done well. So really, those kind of customers, you can just say, okay, what tell me about your past experience, and tell, yeah, we did this CRM, this guy came in, he was supposed to build the processes, but we ended up using Excel. Okay, want to tell me why? And they start explaining the problems, and you tell them, yeah, listen, the previous solution you were doing it, your mistake was that you didn't do X, Y, Z. Now, if you do that, if you build that correctly, you would not need to input all data twice, or open your Outlook to write some sort of email whenever that happens, or have a direct line just at the push of a button, send a very specific sales-oriented text message to the client. So really need to build on their past bad experiences and explain, and you can build the authority, but just by explaining to them why it didn't work well last time. As far as new customers and someone who has not had a bad experience, you just need, I guess I call it sometimes it's an ROI sell. You really need to tell them, listen, if you have this sort of type of campaign, you're bringing on X number of leads, and you're not handling them correctly, and this did not happen, you don't know who to talk to first, you're going to lose money. So what's the point of having 1,000 new leads each month if you're only maximizing 2% of that?
So that's interesting, because I think that's an area that I've actually been moving away from, I guess, the new business, where someone's like, I'm using Excel and I'm sure there's a better way, but I love Excel because check this out, look what I've made, isn't this so cool, and it works so well and things like that. And it's like, yeah, you're using all these color schemes and things like that, but now hire a new employee and show them the system. They'll be so confused by it because what you created is in your own head, and it makes sense for you, but it's not actually a standard. So I found myself, the same thing with web development. development. I did web development for the first 4 or 5 years of my career. And I realized that people, the first time they were getting a website built for their company, they were much less likely to spend money, and they were normally like they heard the costs associated with it and they'd be blown away by it. And they would always be a difficult client, the truth of the matter. Whereas you almost needed a client that had gone through a bad experience with a web developer already to realize that if you spend $1,000-$2,000 on a website, you're going to get a $1,000-$2,000 website. And to do things properly, you need to hire a proper company that's going to be more expensive. And I'm almost seeing that same thing happen in CRM, where in my mind, when I first started selling CRM, I was like, I just need to sell enough clients to make that reseller margin, and you get this passive income kind of coming in, which isn't really the case, because now you become tier 1 support and they're your client, and there's a lot of work associated. You're still a service business. We're in no way a product business by doing this. We're definitely a service business. Therefore, there really is no idea of like passive income. There's supplemental income that comes in. Yeah, making a small margin from selling a CRM. That's great, but you're not going to build a business on that unless you're selling 500 to 1,000 person seats. But if you sell 1,000 person seat and you're not supporting them as a service company, then they're not going to stay with you. So I guess it's an interesting thing that. So do you even really take on clients that have not had any experience with a CRM before? Like, are you getting to the point where you actually kind of turn them away versus trying to sell them on the value of doing it right?
Well, like I said, at first I tried to bring all clients on board, and I'm currently at the point where, sometimes the interesting thing is that sometimes the price really is your sort of your filtering mechanism.
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
Because if someone doesn't have it, and they will say, okay, yeah, like you said before, okay, I heard that it looks cool. I heard it's supported, my friend, whatever told me, but I'm willing to invest, I don't know, $500 in that. And now, in the past, I would think, okay, how do I tailor a solution that would fit your budget? But I don't do that anymore. Like, listen, this is if this is your budget, you don't need this solution, or you don't need to work with us. I always have the advantage of saying, listen, I have the free online training for Pipedrive, for example. Just take that. It's totally free. Just do it on your own.
Okay.
Now, if they do that on your own and succeed, good for them. If they do that on their own and they abandon it and don't do anything with it, then our project, then they would not have an ROI on if we were to do the project together. But sometimes they would start on their own, and a while later they would just say, listen, okay, I got it. It's not for me, but I understand the merits, but I'm not going to do it myself. Okay, I'm willing to invest now, and that's a good client, because right now they went through some sort of process. So
out of curiosity, do you, for example, take on highly technical clients? Because like now we'll play that up a little bit. Like, say they're very involved and they almost want to know everything that you're doing at every point and what APIs you're using, and they want full access to everything because they just want to see what's going on with it. Like, do you take on clients like that, or is that kind of a bad sign to you?
I take on clients like that. I just if I realize during the sales process that there are these type of clients, I would probably just up the price a little bit, because I know I would need to invest a lot of time, explaining and everything.
Yes.
I'm always into, I'm not into holding any knowledge on my own. I think knowledge, everyone can learn the knowledge. And if I learn to do X, and I can teach my customers to do X, then they would come to me with the bigger challenges.
Oh yeah, which is what we want. Yeah. Oh yeah.
More interesting. It's more worthwhile as a business, instead of just saying, listen, I know X and I'm going to do X for the entire population for the next 10 years. That's not interesting. That's not a good business model. So yeah, I would definitely take them on. I would. We also have. I started organizing like monthly Pipedrive Zapier meetups, where for a very, very small cost, just get everyone together in a room. Just someone in the community will show us some scenario or something they build, some interesting automation that they build that the other guys can learn from, or sometimes bring in like lectures that are totally related to subjects related, like on sales methodologies and how to train salespeople. So just having the knowledge out is good, and if it's a customer who really wants to know how to get how things work, and if they really are serious and understand, they not just wanting to learn something technical but not having the chops for it at all, then I'm all for it. I would just explain to them that listen, it's going to take more time, and that's what it's going to cost more.
Yeah, you need to almost like do more detailed documentation for these types of people because they really want to see at the core of what's happening, and a lot more time goes into just project management, or a bug happens versus just fixing that bug. You have to then spend a half an hour explaining to them why the bug happened, why it won't happen again, and So what I've learned, at least for myself, is someone who's not at all technical is very difficult to work with, very, very, very difficult. But someone who's highly, highly technical, they're also very difficult to work with. Someone in the middle where they're willing to learn CRM, they're willing to learn a few of these other systems. So say that we're using, Reply.io for email campaigns, or, ConvertKit or whatever. As long as they're willing to learn some new software somewhat and be adept with it, then that's a good client. And there's really this good give and take, to the point where you mentioned, like, they may catch even small bugs and fix them, which is great because you don't have to be involved for the small things. And that's where you can really save, your time and energy for the big things, the big wheel kind of stuff when they want to work on it. So no, it's definitely very interesting. I'm thinking kind of before, because I know we're definitely running out of time. I wanted to ask you kind of one question about, out of all of the automations that you've built for all of your clients or your own company, what is the one automation that you've built that maybe you're most proud of? I'm almost thinking that it might be the example that you gave earlier on, that the native integration with Zapier that you built. Is that what it was?
I was very proud of that one, because really, right now, 2018 Zapier is pretty much a household name with businesses, but 2014, really, no one knew about it in Israel. But this is not the only Zapier integration we built. We also built an app called Pipe for You, where we were missing functionality in the Pipedrive Zapier app, and we needed just a better integration and more functionality. So we just built an app called Pipe for You that allows you to search deals and contacts in a smarter way than these Pipedrive Zapier app allows, and also allows you to attach deals to products and pull products from deals, which is very useful. For it's no good if you have a workflow that pulls like 100 leads from the email marketing software, and you have to go one by one and attach a product to them manually. That really sucks.
So that's interesting. So is Pipe for You, is this a product, or are people only able to get it if they hire you for your services and you will use it on the back end?
It's a product.
Okay.
It's sold separately.
Okay.
And but usually when someone does an integration project with us, we usually give them the app for free. So that's an edge. My so-called competitors, like other Pipedrive integrators in Israel as well, they have to buy the software for their clients. So that's an edge we had because we developed it. So if you just want to buy it off the shelf, good, just put in your credit card and pay for it. But if you do the integration process with us, you'll get it for free.
So is it SaaS software? So is it an ongoing monthly subscription service to use it?
No. This one is a one-time.
Okay. That's really interesting. That's a cool thing. And I think that's honestly something that I've been looking to do as well. Prosperix is starting to allow for some deeper internal integration. And so you can build these kind of custom apps. And I'm thinking the same thing where, if you work with us, we can build them or use these things that we've built versus either paying a lot for them, or maybe we don't even make them available externally. I think there's some scenarios where you'd want to do that, but it sounds really interesting that you're doing that. I think that's totally the right direction. It gives you that unique value prop. And then also you built the software, you know it better than anyone. So if someone's going to use it, why would they not hire you, to maybe be able to manipulate it or better understand what it does. So that's very cool. Before we get off here, I definitely want to know, because you mentioned bots, and this is an area that I've played around with a little bit. I know the company Drift has gotten quite large lately, and they allow for kind of sales bots jumping in and maybe directing you to the proper, okay, so I'm a small business, so they'll direct you to the small business department versus enterprise. And there's a lot that could kind of be done with bots. But I tried doing some of this for smaller clients, and they weren't getting enough traffic on the website, and maybe 5% of that actually clicks on the bot. So there just wasn't enough value coming in. So how have you been able to deliver value through bots? What bots are you using, and how does that work for you and your clients?
Well, we got into bots about a year ago, and really by mistake, we had no intention of getting into bots. A friend of mine was in there's a huge Ryan Dice holds a huge marketing convention each year in San Diego, I think.
Okay.
And a colleague of mine came back from it. I think it was the end of 2015 or something, or 2016. He said, "Listen, there's a huge thing in Facebook now. It's the bots. It's amazing. You can have campaigns that go to messaging." I was like, "Listen, I have enough automation on my mind. Leave me alone." But a couple of months later, we started really encountering a problem where we would get a lot of private messages in a Facebook page saying, "Listen, I'm interested in this product or that product. Can I hear more?" And we'd just send them manually either a landing page that integrates with the CRM, or we would take their details manually and send them to the sales team. And after a while, it got really annoying that, listen, why do I have to answer these people all the time and copy their details into the CRM? If I'm an automation guy, why am I doing that? And I started investigating the issue, and I came across the whole concept of bots in Facebook, and I started studying it and really built a very, very basic bot just as a lead generation tool. And it just started working. People, I would see people. I remember riding my bicycle one Saturday morning and really stopping near an orange tree in one of the fields here in Israel, and just pulling out my phone while I'm eating an orange to just check out messages. And suddenly I'm seeing someone corresponding with the bot live. It was amazing. I remember, oh my God, someone is talking to the bot. And someone started talking with the bot Saturday morning, and 2 minutes later, he was a lead in the CRM. And Sunday morning, he would get a phone call from the sales team, and also we would do something that we would send him additional content through email, just to grab their attention. And so I just started realizing the power of it. Now, the getting traffic into your bot is really a matter of having enough Facebook activity. So be it some sort of, we always see that whenever we run some sort of campaign, doesn't even have to be a messenger campaign, but whenever we run any campaign, we would get private messages to our business page, and the bot would answer. And you can also do, since I have a digital course on bots, I also have a funnel that leads to the digital course, and that's with obviously with messenger ads. So people would see like a short video, and then would have like a free test yourself. Does your business need a bot? And of course, the bot would test you, ask you a series of questions, and analyze if you need a bot or not. And so you can have a messenger campaign that sends leads directly into Messenger. So really, I think it's a matter of having enough Facebook activity and being active on Facebook as a business, that you just start receiving messages.
Okay.
And the bot will justify itself.
So don't necessarily go out and spend the resources and time building out a Facebook bot if you're not even getting any Facebook messages. I think that's a good rule of thumb for automation in general. Like, don't automate something because you think, bots are supposed to be a big thing. Everyone says bots, and AI, therefore I should build it now. It's like, no, wait until there's the actual need for your specific company. And I think that's maybe been more the area that I've failed with clients, is they just weren't getting enough activity and they wanted that bot. I'm like, okay, we'll build it. And we do, and it doesn't get used. So that's where we kind of backed away from it.
If you're doing that, one of the things that you can do is really partner up with someone who's good at building like Facebook campaigns, and then as part of the same, so up the price a bit of the service, and as part of that, say, listen, I'm going to also build you a basic campaign for getting leads from Messenger. And it can even be some sort of boosted post that the bot can auto respond to, and that would start building their broadcast list inside the bot. So it's really a matter of if they don't have any traffic, they would also need you to build to generate the traffic for them in a basic manner.
Yeah. No, and that's the basic ebb and flow, right? Like when I started, I was doing web development, and we naturally moved into online marketing. So I was doing a lot of AdWords and some Facebook campaigns and things like that. And then that's where I really realized, like, this right here is a company of its own, and I don't like doing this anymore. There's value, I understand it, and you're kind of gambling in a way. It's strategic gambling, and you need to do it. And every client that I have is using AdWords and Facebook to market, and they're getting a return on investment. But that's not an area that I really like being involved in, taking that kind of risk of, like, there's some months that go by where they spend $3-4 grand and they're like, we didn't get any conversions. And then you're sick to your stomach. We're like, we didn't change anything with the campaign. It's no different. And then like 2 weeks later, things start working again. It was just because, I guess people didn't want to buy this month. So it's a stressful business to be in, but I think you bring up a great point. Partner up with a company, essentially a marketing agency, a marketing company that does and specializes in that type of thing. And then tell them, like, we want to build a Facebook bot. Can you help us get the traffic that we would need to build up a community, to build up that need for the bot, and then kind of go from there? So I guess to close things out real quick, I'm just out of curiosity, bots and AI kind of overlap in some regard. Did you see the Google Duplex thing where, Google on stage had called up, I guess, like the small business and like asked for time or scheduled like the restaurant appointment or the haircut appointment, and AI was just talking to the person? Did you see that happen?
Listen, I saw that. My jaw dropped. I think on that day, other than sharing that on Facebook, I think I watched that clip, 12 times. It was so amazing.
Yeah. So
and people saw that and I shared it. People's like, oh no, oh my God, machines will replace us. This is terrible. We don't know if we're talking to a machine or a person. But you have to really realize, and I think it's a good closure, because it's also about automation, where we started. Manual work and manual jobs will disappear, right? So you need to really sharpen your ability to generate creative value, and generate value that machine will have a harder time duplicating. Because if someone listening to this has not seen that, just hop on YouTube. I guess Google I/O bot call, and just get that someone, a bot making a reservation for her client to get a haircut. It's so amazing, because it's such a mundane and not interesting call, right? It's really not interesting unless you know that the person is a bot, in which case it's mind-boggling.
Yeah. And I think that's the crazy part. And there was an uproar, because I think everything, people do kind of, they're looking at AI with a fine-tooth comb, and they will get angry over it. And people were saying, like, okay, well, that's messed up for the person answering the phone. Like, they should know that they're talking to a bot. That's like unfair and things like that. But it's like, really what you're doing is you're scheduling a haircut appointment. Guess what? I do that through, a website most of the time now, where I'm essentially dealing with a bot. I'm filling out a form. I'm not talking to a person. Yeah. And this would be more so used for the companies that aren't embracing, we already have an online form to fill out. And maybe in the future, if a company has an online form and you tell the AI to go do it, maybe it just fills out the form online, for example. So it's really just pushing businesses that aren't kind of evolving, these restaurants that don't have their hours of operation and things like that, or, busy wait times, which Google's trying to take care of a lot of that. You jump to Google, type in a restaurant, it says it's typically super busy at 6, 7, 8 p.m., so you will probably have to make reservations. So like Google's taking the AI in a way and doing things like that where you can actively quickly look at it, and people are like, well, what happens in the future? It'll be bots talking to bots. And it's like, great. If I could tell my Google Assistant bot to call up and make an appointment for me, and it does that, and it talked to another bot, who cares? The point is, that's the goal in a certain way. We don't want either human to be on other end, because like that's a waste of human activity, and it needs to start one way initially, and then it will be both ways, and then that's where you get the value, and the humans stop doing the redundant things.
Yeah, I think also if if you find that that receptionist that took the appointment, from the bot, and tell them, listen, did you know that you were talking to a bot? I doubt they'll care.
Yeah.
Because they had what did they wanted to do their job well, and have a good work experience, or have a good experience providing the service that they provide. And they did, because the bot was very polite. It was very strict and to the point. It didn't mess around, try to tell them jokes and waste their time.
Yeah.
It said, listen, I did X. They told them this. Okay, thank you. I doubt that it matters to them that they were talking to a bot.
No, and the business owner shouldn't care either, because like the fact that I was able to conveniently schedule a haircut appointment through Google Assistant makes me want to keep going back to this company to get my haircut, because it's convenient for me. And at the end of the day, that's what businesses need to kind of evolve and adapt to. I guess the one downside could be these robo-dialers. Like if they can start utilizing this technology, that could be bad and that could be annoying. And, and that's, I guess I could see that being a worry. But from the examples that they gave, come on now, like you don't have to start the call saying, by the way, I am AI. And then that people are like, not going to take you seriously, or they'll try to trip you up, and now the value of that just like it's gone, and you just ruin the purpose of what this is meant to be. But yeah, man, cool. I really appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you taking the time. We're in just around an hour now. So where can people go, to find you, find more information? You mentioned Pipe for You. So if you are using Pipedrive, you probably want to go check that out. I searched on Google real quick for it. I couldn't find it, so can you give a little bit more instructions of where they can find that, how it's spelled, and where they can find you if they want to get in touch?
Actually, they can find me on Facebook, David Zisner, would be most convenient because our website is Hebrew, but David Zisner on Facebook, can just message me. It's okay. I'll answer, not a bot, I promise. And Pipe for You is a private app. We have just a landing page for it in Hebrew, but I'll put a landing page also in English so people understand what it does. It's super, super useful app for really for improving your Pipedrive workflows. And if you want to just consult with me to see if you really need it, just send me a Facebook message. That'd be most convenient. David Zisner.
Excellent. Hey, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it, and I think we had a lot of awesome discussion. I'm sure we'll continue talking in the community and everything, but this has been another episode of Analysis Paralysis. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks, Alex.
This is Alex Bass with Analysis Paralysis. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. I'm planning on doing many more of these, so if you enjoy this, please, if you can make your way over to iTunes and leave a review. Unfortunately, I think that's one of the only areas that you can really review podcasts nowadays. So if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated. You could just search for Analysis Paralysis. If you want to reach out to me, because maybe you want to possibly join me on an episode in the future, we can talk about business process automation, efficiency, CRM, maybe if you're a business owner that's implemented automation. So please reach out to me on Twitter. Alex H. Bass is my handle, or you can email me at abass@aparalysis.com. Thanks so much.